Hello and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Joyanne Kelly, and with us is our very distinguished guest, a gentleman with an impressive list of credentials, attorney at law, founder of the Clement Payne movement, former head of the Commission for Pan-African Affairs, one of the key Pan-Africanists in Caribbean politics, need I go on, author as well, and now he is His Excellency David Comissiong, Barbados' ambassador to Caricom. Ambassador, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Ambassador, can you give an account of the journey that led you to this point in your career?
Well, I mean, I have had a long career in public life. I started in 1984, so that's some 38 years, and there have been many turns, but specifically in relation to my focus on the Caribbean, I would say that really goes back to my family. I mean, I was born in St. Vincent. I went to primary school in Trinidad. I then came to Barbados in 1971 to start secondary school in Barbados. My father, Grenadian, my mother, Bajan, who grew up in Guyana. I have one brother from Trinidad, one from Guyana, one from St. Vincent. So my family is really a Caribbean family. My father was a Methodist minister, and they move around. They move around the region, 5 years here, 5 years there. But the family has been in Barbados since 1971. So I had that kind of Caribbean orientation. I'm an attorney at law. Got involved in politics very young. Served in the Senate. At the time, I was the youngest senator in Barbados. Founded the Clement Payne movement, and from that Barbadian nationalism, national activism, got involved in the Caribbean arena. I am a founder of the Caribbean Pan-African movement, the Caribbean Pan-African Network, the Caribbean chapter of the International Network of Intellectuals and Activists in Defense of Humanity, the Caribbean Peace Movement, and even locally, back in 1998, for example, the Clement Payne movement, we partnered with the Barbados Labour Party to stage a Barbados OECS Unity Conference right here in Barbados. Out of that, many Barbadians may not remember, but out of that came the Barbados OECS Unity Task Force, and I served on that task force as Barbados's representative. So I have had paid a lot of attention to the Caribbean. In fact, a few years before I became ambassador, I had written this book. This was published in 2014, An Urgent Call to the Caribbean. So when on election day in 2018, then opposition leader Mia Mottley asked me if I would serve as Barbados's ambassador to Caricom. She obviously knew she was going to win the election. And I said yes, because truth be told, back then I was already working with my civil society associates across the Caribbean. We were working on a project, a civil society project, to make Caricom more people-centered. So here was an opportunity. Look, I'm working on this thing from the outside. Here's an opportunity to do it from the inside. So I said yes, and since 2018, I've been ambassador not only to Caricom, but I'm also ambassador to the Association of Caribbean States.
Ambassador, what does this latest title of Barbados's ambassador to Caricom mean to you?
Well, Joyanne, from my perspective, it is the most important ambassador position. If you were to ask me, would you prefer to be Barbados's ambassador to the United Nations, or to the UK, or to Washington, D.C., or to Canada? I would say no. for me, Caricom is so important. I think the Caribbean community has to be our priority. Yes, all the others are very important. Our relations with other countries of the world, very important. But for me, I think the key arena that we must solidify is our Caribbean community. This must be our foundation. This must be our base. So I'm very happy and very committed to this job as ambassador to Caricom. I represent Barbados in all things Caricom. Of course, Caricom is a very, very big agenda. I mean, Caricom basically covers everything. Whether it's trade, education, health, response to disasters, you name it. Caricom covers it. And so there are different parts of the Caricom agenda where ministers of government would step in. But the ambassador to Caricom is the person who is expected, in a sense, to be the voice and ears and eyes of Barbados at all times in everything related to Caricom. I'm also expected to be Barbados's non-resident High Commissioner to the various Caribbean community countries. So, for example, I have been accredited to Jamaica, Belize, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, and I still have a number of others to complete the accreditation process. And as Caricom ambassador, I also serve on the committee of Caricom ambassadors. That's an institution within Caricom. And so in addition to representing Barbados, the committee of Caricom ambassadors is given specific functions to do within the Caricom agenda. For example, right now, I am on a subcommittee that is overseeing a project aimed at doing an analysis of all of the institutions of Caricom. There's 17 institutions of Caricom, to determine if they are fit for purpose, how well are they performing, are they essential, should some of them be revamped, reorganized. I've also served on Caricom's group of experts on Haiti. So from time to time, I'm given different assignments within the overall Caricom agenda.
Okay. Ambassador, is there anything else about your role as ambassador to Caricom that is important to you as well and to the Caribbean community?
Communicating with our people about Caricom. I think that is very important. And I try to be that conduit for information to pass from the center of Caricom to the Barbadian people. So, for example, I do a weekly segment on CBC's Morning Barbados, and I've done that now for 4 years. So I've done probably close to 200 programs. But I report on a weekly basis to the Barbadian people about what is happening in Caricom. I think communicating to the Caribbean people about Caricom is critical. In fact, soon after I became Caricom ambassador, I penned a letter to all of the institutions of Caricom and the associate institutions. We have 17 full institutions, and we have 8 associate institutions. So, you're talking CDMA, CXC, the Caricom Court of Justice. Associate institutions would be like the Caribbean Development Bank, University of the West Indies, etc. And I said to them that it is important that all of them make an effort to communicate to the Caribbean people about what they are doing, who they are, why they exist, what services are they rendering to our region, because we need to develop an ideology of regionalism in our people. And we will only do that if we communicate, if we communicate constantly about the importance and benefits of regionalism. So I see that as a big part of my mandate. Before COVID, I was actually going into the schools, speaking to our senior students. We had a program called I Am Caricom. COVID interrupted it, but I want to restart it because it's very important that our young people get that Caricom message as early as possible.
In what way would you say that Caricom is making an indelible mark on the world by contributing something constructive to international affairs, to be efficient in making sure that we collectively as possible pursue our own vital interests rather than pursuing our interests as separate nations?
Well, I think there are many areas in which I think Caricom has impacted very positively on the international agenda. But if I had to single out one, I would say that whole area of climate change, sustainable development, and particularly sustainable development in relation to small island developing states. I think a lot of the progressive climate change agenda, for example, the concept that we must do everything necessary to keep the rise in global temperature to no more than 1.5 degrees increase by the end of this century. A lot of that push came from Caricom. There's an organization called AOSIS, the Association of Small Island States. Caricom is a major driving force in AOSIS, and AOSIS has pushed a lot of the international agenda pertaining to the climate crisis and to sustainable development. And even more recently, the concept of a multi-dimensional vulnerability index based on climate. The idea that such an index should be used and by developmental agencies in terms of determining whether to give aid or concessional finance to countries, to small island countries like Barbados. That idea is taking root, and that idea really has been pushed by Caricom. I mean, we could even come closer to home. Caricom, led by Prime Minister Motley, has been advancing the Bridgedown Initiative, and one of the elements of the Bridgedown Initiative, one of the big elements about a new global mechanism for financing the response to climate change. Recently, you heard President Macron of France picking up on this Prime Minister Motley Caricom idea. We have been pushing the idea in recent years that the G20 should be expanded to the G21 to bring in Africa, to bring in the African Union. Just a couple days ago, President Biden of the United States has been parroting that idea. So it tells you that Caricom is having an impact on in international affairs. Caricom is driving new ideas. I share another example with you. There's this move piloted by the US and Canada and those countries of that size to have some initiative towards Haiti, some security intervention in Haiti, and they are all pursuing Caricom. they want Caricom with them. They want the legitimacy that Caricom would give to any such effort. So it just says again that Caricom is being recognized in international affairs. Its importance is being recognized in international affairs. So definitely we could not have that kind of impact on international affairs if we were simply acting singly. And if you want a very good example in Caricom's history of where we acted together and we accomplished things that we could not have accomplished as single nations, you can go to two things very quickly. The decision we took in 1972, collectively Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, to recognize revolutionary Cuba at a time when powerful entities like the US government and the Organization of American States had imposed this policy of isolation on Cuba. If our countries had tried to do that recognition as single entities, they would have been exposed, they would have come under tremendous pressure, but they did it as a collective. And as a collective, they were not only were they successful in doing it as a collective, but they kind of broke the ice, and many other countries followed in that direction thereafter. When England joined the European Economic Community, this was the first, in a sense, foreign policy challenge to Caricom. Caricom then had to negotiate a new relationship with the European Economic Community, because our relationship was with England before. Now that England had joined the EEC, we now had to negotiate a relationship with the EEC, with England as a member. And if we had tried to do that individually, we would not have gotten anywhere near the kind of deal that we got with the Lomé Convention in 1975. We negotiated as a group, as a collective Caricom group, even within the context of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific nations. And so there's example after example of us achieving things because we pursued them collectively, things that we probably would not have achieved if we had each gone about it as individual countries.
Can you share your thoughts then on healthcare for Caricom? Well,
health is a big issue right across our region. We know the situation in Barbados. There's a plague of non-communicable diseases, particularly diabetes and hypertension. It is calculated, the medical experts tell us that 8 out of every 10 deaths in Barbados can be attributed to non-communicable diseases. 20% of the Barbadian population is said to suffer from diabetes, and the obesity. 30% of our children are said to be obese, and that leads on to things like diabetes and hypertension. And we have a mounting health bill that is being driven by having to respond to so many people suffering from non-communicable diseases, so many people suffering from stroke and so forth. And so that is the Barbados situation, but the situation is very similar right across the region. So it is something that not only Barbados, but all CARICOM countries that we really have to get under control. And we can't get it under control by simply investing more and more resources in doctors and hospitals and clinics, as important as those are. So clearly we have to go the route of prevention, I think. And that is going to call for changes in diet, changes in lifestyle, people becoming more exercise-oriented. That is going to call for new policies in relation to fast food restaurants and sugary drinks. And we have seen some of those moves in Barbados. So I would say that we need to go the route in the region of prevention. We just had this CARICOM Cuba summit, and a number of these things were emphasized, that in fact Cuba can help us Cuba can, because Cuba has developed its health and medical system to such a high level, and they have developed new and cutting edge medications dealing with diabetes, not just the medications, but also the approaches, how to educate people about diabetes, how to go about developing appropriate lifestyles. And so I think that this is an area that we really need to collaborate more. We need to do more within our individual countries. We need to do more at a Caricom level. And I think coming out of the Caricom Cuba Summit, it is clear that there's much that we can gain in tackling our health issues if we collaborate with Cuba.
Ambassador, what do you think is the remedy for curbing crime?
It's
a tough one.
It's a multifaceted problem, and again, you know, we are facing the problem in Barbados, but it's not unique to Barbados. It's all across our region. In fact, I would say all across our hemisphere, and that, I think that tells us something. I personally feel that there's a big cultural element to it, and I think we exist in an overarching culture system that is impacting upon us. I think that that kind of Western culture that has its foundation in big countries like the United States, that is very consumerist driven, very capitalistic driven, that is promoting a popular culture that is pushing values of self-centeredness, cynicism, you know, a lack of empathy for other human beings, that glamorizes violence, for example. I think we are seeing at a cultural level the effects of that overarching, that what I would call a negative overarching culture system, and the way to counteract that has to be with very strong national cultures. You know, we in Barbados, our people are being buffeted by a Western cultural system that is overarching, but we have our nation, we have our national culture, we have instruments within our grasp nationally to develop our own culture, to develop our own cultural responses. And I think we have to be wise to the situation we find ourselves in. We have to do a lot more to root our young people in our own national culture, to counteract some of that sense of alienation and self-centeredness and cynicism, and I think it's going to call for an all of society approach. We are not going to, if it's a cultural problem, then you're not going to solve it simply by more police and, you know, more resources for the police and so forth. That's important, but we have to get to the root. And if the root is cultural, it means that all of the relevant entities within society, school, the church, the family, we all have to play a role, and we all have to play a role in terms of reaching our people, nurturing them, catering to their development, letting them know that they're an important part of this society, that they're valued, that there's a place for them within this society, that the society cares for them, that there's opportunity and hope, you know, within the society for them. So I think that has to be how we have to think about it. Yes, at the level of policing and so forth, we have regional institutions. We have, for example, at the Caricom level, the implementation agency impacts for crime and security. You know, we have the regional security system. We have the council of ministers of security. So there's several Caricom bodies that actually tries to keep this region safe, that actually looks at crime in a regional context, that tries to keep firearms, for example, out of coming into our region. And all of those things are important. You know, we need to support them, and we need them to work at full capacity. But I think even when we do all of that, we're going to come back to the question of culture, and we're going to come back to the role that we have to play in that battle for the minds and souls of our people, especially our young people.
Thank you so much for joining us on this program, Ambassador.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of our program on Let's Talk. Thank you for watching.